Yes.
There it is. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the MFTF 243 demo. I'm going to be demoing some of the, pretty much the two actual release items that we have that are demoable. Other than these two, it was mainly bug fixes and minor quality of life stuff that was already included in 242. 243 has been PR'd into the 2.3 develop branch, which means it is going to be making its way, or 2.3 develop and 2.3 develop, which means it's going to be making its way into the upcoming Magento releases as like the default version and the default supported version. So that's really good. After the demo, if anybody calling in from the community has any updates that they want to share or anything like that, by all means, the floor will be open then. And as always, feel free to ask questions kind of as they come up. So let's go ahead and get started then. If I can, there we go. So first feature for 243 would be that the creds file can now be used in magentoCLI actions. Yeah, credentials unencrypted value is hidden from report output. So that's the big thing and the big reason why credentials is not supported in every single action, is that there's some additional under the hood work that needs to be done anytime that you want to be passing in credentials to any codeception action. Mainly in that codeception has the nice convenience feature of whenever it's doing output, it automatically says what parameters are going to be used for the output, right? So what that means is that if the builds are public and you're setting an API key or something like that in your Magento instance for using your test, everybody's going to have the API key to your sandbox environment or whatever other confidential stuff that you don't want to actually just have freely to everybody. So that's why we have to individually enable these creds for using individual actions. And this time it was the magentoCLI action. Just for a quick summary of how to use it, you would just do config set or config sensitive set or whatever other CLI command you want, just whatever path you want, and then just the usual double braces underscore creds dot whatever field, and then end double braces. I'll show you guys real quick here in test execution, but just a preview of what that's going to look like is in the lower report, it's going to show this encrypted key instead of the actual key. And as well as in the CLI output, it'll output this encrypted key. So let me just go ahead and show that to you guys real quick. There we go. I'm going to increase my font size a little bit. I forgot to do that. Good stuff. So just like in the slide deck there, I'm setting the authorized net accept.js currency as USD. Again, let's just pretend that this is an actual API key. I just wanted to use something simple because it works for anything, but the applications are pretty much up to you guys. In my credentials file, I declared secret field here is equal to USD. And so I'm going to run the test. Be a fairly quick and painless test. Just regenerating. As you guys can see right here, key is obscured and test succeeded. I can go into my Magento instance real quick. Well, I already had it set as USD, but if you guys will be able to see, it accepted the USD as the value here. So even though it's obscured, it's still actually using the correct value. Yeah, that's pretty much it for that feature right there. I'll generate the lower report later after I show the next feature, but it's essentially the same thing as the CLI output. Nothing crazy going on there. Next up, if a test is broken, a test step is now injected into the lower report. So what that means is that since we do the fancy per action group sub-stepping and nesting and stuff like that, what could happen previously is if for some reason a test step got broken and then the after it manages to still execute because the WebDriver didn't die or something like that, or the PHP process is still alive, it could lead to some really weird looking alert reports that doesn't show exactly where it is that the test is breaking. Even now, however, if a test is broken for some reason, it would just show as this login as admin group right here, it would show it as a green, even though the test was broken. That's just due to the way that the LOR code exception adapter is kind of written, I think. When a test is broken, they just set the test as broken and then move on. They don't actually add a step in for it. So by adding a step in for it, we get a little bit slightly better reporting. It trickles down properly when it comes to marking things as broken, and then the failure reason is going to be right there. So I'm going to demonstrate that by going through and manually breaking a test the worst way it could possibly be broken. Admin login test. Actually, I'm just going to generate a test. So what I'm going to be doing is generating admin login test, going into the generated PHP, and then changing one of the functions from a fill field fill field to a function that doesn't exist, which is going to trigger a PHP fatal error for the process, which will accurately demonstrate what happens when a test is hard broken like that. Set of fill field don't exist. This obviously doesn't exist in the WebDriver, so we're going to see a pretty spectacular failure. So I'm going to run the test with a skip flag on so it doesn't regenerate. This is the back end. Fails horribly because the method doesn't exist. And so lastly, I'm going to be copying the path here, lure serve, paste the path. And we're going to see our test defect right here. The whole thing shows up as yellow, which is the lower broken color. And then we can see that this call to undefined method is right here. So yeah, this extends to pretty much anything else that would cause a test to be broken. Any other fatal errors that would otherwise kill the process should now be caught and noted right here. I'm not 100% sure how this interacts with the WebDriver crashing problem that we've been seeing internally on builds. It might actually catch that, but I have honestly no idea since that one was just killing the node. Hopefully it does, but that's always also been fixed on the pipeline level, so it's not a big deal. And just getting back to the first one, just to show you guys again, right here. No way for them to find out the encrypted value. So that's honestly it for MFTF 2.4.3. Like I said, the rest of it was mostly just getting the 2.4.2 release contents along with 2.4.3 release contents out onto the develop branches. Some minor bug fixes that you guys can check out in the changelog. But that's essentially it for 2.4.3. One of the features in 2.4.3 that we have, the using of creds and magentoCLI actions, is more or less setting up groundwork for in the soon nearish future, I'm not 100% sure on what the timeline is, for being able to use the Adobe Vault integration that MFTF is going to have, so that the credentials files are going to be able to be used in builds and stuff like that, and extension developers and everybody else will be able to submit their own creds. That's a whole other can of worms. That's not 100% on our court, but the MFTF integration of it at the very least is. Cool. Do we have any questions or any comments from anybody dialing in? Sounds like a no to me. Let me stop sharing here real quick. Just double check the chat. No, I think everybody's good. Anybody in the room? Any questions? Sounds good. Good.
Just a minor question.
Yeah, go for it.
That value that's shown in the output, the encrypted value, will that be the same value from run to run, or does that value change from run to run?
Pretty sure it changes from run to run.
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah, the credentials manager from MFTF reads in the secret keys, encrypts them at runtime using runtime variables, and then decrypts them at the same runtime with runtime variables, right? So even I think in between different tests, if you use the same credential for test A and test B, it's going to be different.
Just checking.
No, it's a fair question. But good stuff then. If nobody from community has any updates or anything like that, I think that we can honestly adjourn this one. Thanks everybody for joining.
I'm not from community, but more of a question.
Sure.
So we encountered a problem where one of our community members was trying to run our tests.
Yes.
So Alexei knows about the issue that if you run our functional test suite, Magento test suite, eventually you will encounter a lot of problems with dependencies between tests that we do not catch because they run in parallel on our infrastructure, right? So
Sure.
I think that there's a problem that requires two fixes. And I wonder if that's something that is on backlog already or is that plan. So first, some mechanism to prevent dependencies between tests. Well, I'm not sure what that would be. Maybe static analysis, maybe some dynamic analysis. But that's one thing. Another thing that actually solve the problem of parallel and test run and test execution for community members. I think taking into account that a run of Magento test suite takes 7 hours. What is it, 7 hours now?
If you do it in a row, yes.
22 actually.
Well, depending, okay, yeah, 22 full test suite. Some subset Sergey was running took 7 hours.
Mhm.
So, and we have all this complicated infrastructure that allows us to run the tests in parallel. But our community members, our SIs and developers, they don't have that infrastructure, right? We do not ship functional testing framework with the ability to run tests in parallel, right? And I think that should be part of what we ship, right? So something like shipping something like Kubernetes manifest with images for functional tests. So that would be a tool that would be built on top of MFTF. So if I download it, I execute the command and I tell it which test to execute, and it will go and spawn. The only thing that I have to configure is where I have my Kubernetes cluster, for example, right? So if I have an AWS account with AKS or AKS, I can go and deploy this infrastructure. My tool will go and deploy this infrastructure and will run the tests in parallel. So that is something I think sooner or later we'll have to build. If that's not something that you guys have in mind, please think about something like that. I understand this is not a demo question, more of like planning or grooming, but please take a look into that.
Okay, got it. I send you a ticket we created to stabilize all tests when we run them in single mode, when we run them test-based test without parallel run mode.
Yeah. I think we also need to add a CI/CD build, CI build, to make sure that it's repeatable. And also, current test suite, does it have failing tests out of the box, even in parallel? If you run them in parallel?
If we run them in parallel, all failed tests they skipped if we have them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you will generate all tests, the skip tests will not be generated. We only distribute and deliver tests which are passing and green. The skip tests, they can be skipped because of MFTF. Because of bad design of test, and the other reason can be Magento bug.
Understood.
So nothing else. All other tests which unskipped and we run them on each pull request, they are green, and we require every pull request to run them and see them green.
Understood.
The only problem here, we run them in parallel mode, so that's what can cause an issue.
Yeah, we were talking about this during lunch, myself and then Reese and then somebody else. We were talking about mitigation strategies for that kind of stuff. One of the mitigation strategies that's often used in like other companies is randomizing of test orders. So that's something we can also add into our builds, such that tests are run in a random order. That makes it easier to determine Well, it's upfront work to basically stabilize the existing tests, but in the future it should theoretically make it easier to determine that, hey, I added my test now caused the node to fail, therefore my test has dependency problems. But yeah, we'll take a look at as the MQE team to see like the whole idea about distributing the Kubernetes manifest and then images and stuff like that. I think that DevOps had something they were working on that's kind of similar, so maybe that might tie in with theirs. It was the whole thing that Mike Fazell showed, but yeah. It'd be a good idea to expose community to be able to do that. Kind of on that same note, I did talk with some community members about adding in a run manifest command, which if anybody doesn't know, the way that MFTF does its parallelization is it basically generates every test and then generates a manifest with a subset of tests essentially, and then tells a node to run that subset of tests. Right now, what you have to do is you have to write some build logic to iterate through that file and then run line by line. But then we can also, instead of doing that, we can just do a bin MFTF run manifest, path to manifest, and then MFTF is the one that does the iterating. So it's a little step closer towards that whole basically shipping with parallelization with the asterisk of you still need some infrastructure. But yeah, cool. Either way, if the ticket doesn't exist, Anton, we'll create it in our backlog and make sure it's taking a look at it later at the very least. Good suggestion. Of course, thank you. Good stuff. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Sounds good to me then. Thanks everybody for joining. A copy of this is going to be available through the usual means, as well as a copy of the PowerPoint. And yeah, thank you very much. Thank you everybody so much for joining. Get it.
Thank you.